Detective Sarah James sat at her desk, staring at the file in front of her. It was a missing person case, but this was no ordinary case. The missing person was none other than Lady Catherine, one of the wealthiest and most influential women in the city. Lady Catherine had disappeared 2 days ago, and her family was frantic with worry. Sarah had a gut feeling that there was more to this case than meets the eye. She had been in the business long enough to know that when someone like Lady Catherine goes missing, it's never a simple matter. She decided to start her investigation by visiting Lady Catherine's estate. As she walked up the driveway, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The mansion was massive, with beautifully manicured lawns and a grand entrance. Sarah rang the doorbell and was greeted by Lady Catherine's butler, who showed her into the study. The study was dimly lit, with antique furniture and bookshelves lining the walls. As Sarah waited for Lady Catherine's husband to arrive, she couldn't help but feel like something was off. She had a sense that there was more to this case than just a missing person. Finally, Lord William, Lady Catherine's husband, arrived. He was visibly shaken, with dark circles under his eyes. He explained to Sarah that Lady Catherine had gone missing after attending a charity gala. She had left the event early, saying that she was feeling unwell, and had not been seen since. Sarah took notes as Lord William spoke, trying to piece together any information that could lead to Lady Catherine's whereabouts. She noticed a photo on the desk, a portrait of Lady Catherine wearing a beautiful diamond necklace. "Is that the necklace she was wearing the night she disappeared?" Sarah asked, pointing to the photo. Lord William's face fell. "Yes, it was a family heirloom, passed down for generations. It's worth a fortune." Sarah's heart sank. She had a feeling that this case was not just about a missing person. There was a valuable piece of jewelry involved, and someone was willing to go to extreme lengths to get their hands on it. Sarah walked out of the study, deep in thought. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this case than just a missing person. The mention of the missing necklace, a family heirloom worth a fortune, had piqued her curiosity. She decided to start by questioning Lady Catherine's family and friends who had attended the charity gala. She hoped someone might have seen or heard something that could help her find Lady Catherine. Sarah's first stop was Lady Catherine's best friend, Susan. Susan was distraught and tearful as she spoke to Sarah. "We were at the gala together," Susan said, her voice trembling. "Catherine wasn't feeling well, so she decided to leave early. I stayed behind for a bit longer, but when I got back to her table, she was gone." Sarah asked Susan if she had seen anyone acting suspiciously, but Susan shook her head. Everyone was well dressed and well behaved. It was a high society event, after all. Sarah thanked Susan for her time and left, feeling no closer to solving the case. As she walked down the street, she noticed a small jewelry store on the corner. A sudden thought struck her, and she decided to go inside. The jewelry store was small but elegant, with glass cases filled with beautiful diamonds, emeralds, and sapphires. Sarah approached the counter and introduced herself to the jeweler, a middle-aged man named Jack. "I'm investigating a missing person case," Sarah said. "I was wondering if you had seen or heard anything unusual lately." Jack shook his head. "No, I'm afraid not. But I can tell you that Lady Catherine's necklace was one of a kind. If someone tried to sell it, it would be hard to miss." Sarah's heart quickened. If the necklace was one of a kind, it would be easier to track down. She thanked Jack and left the store, feeling more determined than ever to solve the case. As Sarah walked down the street, her phone rang. It was her colleague, Detective Jackson. "Sarah, I think I've found something," Jackson said. "I spoke to the security guard who was working at the gala the night Lady Catherine went missing. He said he saw a woman leaving the event in a hurry, clutching a small bag." Sarah felt a thrill of excitement. Did he get a good look at her? He said she was wearing a hat and sunglasses, so he didn't see her face. But he did say that she looked nervous and was acting suspiciously. Sarah thanked Jackson and hung up. She had a lead, and she was going to follow it. She headed back to the station to gather more information about the mysterious woman in the hat and sunglasses. Sarah sat at her desk, poring over the information she had gathered about the woman in the hat and sunglasses. She had spoken to several witnesses who had seen the woman leaving the gala, but no one had been able to provide a clear description. Frustrated, Sarah decided to take a break and get some fresh air. She walked down to the nearby park, hoping the change of scenery would help clear her mind. As she strolled along the path, she noticed a woman sitting on a bench, her face hidden behind a wide-brimmed hat and oversized sunglasses. Sarah's heart quickened. Could this be the woman she was looking for? She approached the bench and introduced herself. "Excuse me, miss. I'm Detective Sarah. I'm investigating a missing person case, and I was wondering if you could help me." The woman looked up, her eyes guarded. "I'm sorry, I don't know anything about a missing person." Sarah studied the woman's face, trying to get a better look behind the sunglasses. "Can I at least ask you a few questions? It won't take long." The woman hesitated, then nodded. Sarah sat down on the bench beside her and began to ask about the night of the gala. The woman's answers were vague, and Sarah couldn't tell if she was being truthful or not. Just as Sarah was about to wrap up the conversation, the woman suddenly stood up and grabbed her bag. "I'm sorry, I have to go. Nice talking to you." Before Sarah could say anything else, the woman had disappeared into the crowd. Sarah watched her go, feeling a sense of frustration and unease. Something about the woman's behavior had felt off, but she couldn't put her finger on what it was. As she headed back to the station, Sarah tried to piece together the clues she had gathered so far. The woman in the hat and sunglasses had acted suspiciously, but Sarah couldn't prove she was connected to Lady Catherine's disappearance. Feeling discouraged, Sarah decided to call it a day. She left the station and headed home, hoping that a good night's sleep would bring her some clarity in the morning. Sarah woke up early the next morning, determined to make progress on the case. She had a hunch that the woman in the hat and sunglasses was somehow connected to Lady Catherine's disappearance, but she needed more evidence to prove it. She headed to the station and pulled up the files on Lady Catherine's family and friends. As she scrolled through the names, one caught her eye: William Graham. William Graham was Lady Catherine's cousin and the only living relative who stood to inherit her fortune in the event of her death. Sarah made a note to investigate him further. She decided to start by questioning Lady Catherine's housekeeper, Mrs. Jenkins. Mrs. Jenkins had been with Lady Catherine for over 10 years and knew the family well. When Sarah arrived at Lady Catherine's estate, Mrs. Jenkins greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, Detective. How can I help you?" Sarah explained that she was looking into the disappearance of Lady Catherine and asked if Mrs. Jenkins had noticed anything unusual in the days leading up to it. Mrs. Jenkins shook her head. "No, everything was as normal as can be. Lady Catherine was in good spirits, and we were preparing for a charity event she was hosting." Sarah asked if she had noticed anyone acting strangely at the event, but Mrs. Jenkins said that everyone had been on their best behavior. As Sarah was about to leave, Mrs. Jenkins stopped her. "Detective, if I may ask, what drives you to solve these cases? It must be a difficult job." Sarah paused, caught off guard by the question. "I suppose it's the feeling of making a difference, of helping people. And the challenge of putting the pieces together, of solving the puzzle." Mrs. Jenkins nodded thoughtfully. "I see. Well, I wish you the best of luck in finding Lady Catherine. She's a dear woman, and we're all praying for her safe return." Sarah thanked Mrs. Jenkins and headed back to the station, her mind racing with thoughts about the case. As she sat at her desk, she realized that Mrs. Jenkins' question had struck a nerve. She had never really thought about why she became a detective, only that it was what she was good at. She took a deep breath and allowed herself a moment of introspection. Maybe it was time to think about what truly motivated her, both in her career and in her personal life. Feeling renewed, Sarah turned back to the case files and began to dig deeper into William Graham's background. She was determined to find a lead, no matter how small. Sarah's investigation into William Graham led her to a small town outside the city. She drove there early in the morning and parked outside a rundown house with a rusted mailbox that read W. Graham. As she approached the house, she noticed that the windows were boarded up, and the yard was overgrown with weeds. She hesitated, wondering if she should knock on the door or turn back. But then she heard a sound from inside the house. It was a muffled cry, followed by a loud crash. Sarah's instincts kicked in, and she drew her gun as she kicked open the door. Inside, she found William Graham lying on the ground, bleeding from a head wound. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked as she helped him to sit up. William groaned and held his head. "Who are you? What do you want?" "I'm Detective Sarah. I'm investigating the disappearance of Lady Catherine. Do you know anything about it?" William shook his head. "No, I don't know anything. I've been in here all week, trying to stay out of trouble." Sarah studied him carefully. His story seemed genuine, but she couldn't be sure. As she was about to leave, William called out to her. "Wait. There is something you should know. I received a letter from Lady Catherine just before she disappeared." Sarah's heart quickened. "What did it say?" William reached into his pocket and handed her a crumpled piece of paper. She said that she was afraid for her life, that someone was after her. She didn't say who, but she was very scared. Sarah's mind raced. This was the breakthrough she had been waiting for. She thanked William and rushed back to the station to analyze the letter. After several hours of studying the letter, Sarah made a startling discovery. The letter was written in code, with each word representing a letter of the alphabet. It was a complex code, but Sarah was able to crack it with the help of a cryptographer. The message revealed the identity of Lady Catherine's attacker, her trusted personal assistant, Jane Smith. Sarah wasted no time. She rushed to Jane's apartment, where she found Lady Catherine tied up and gagged. With Jane's confession, Sarah was able to solve the case and bring Lady Catherine's attacker to justice. Sarah stepped into her apartment and immediately knew something was wrong. She sensed someone's presence in the room, and her instincts told her to draw her gun. Slowly, she made her way to the desk where her lamp was on, and the curtains were slightly drawn. Suddenly, a shadowy figure emerged from the corner, pointing a gun at her. It was John, her partner. "Put the gun down, Sarah," he ordered. Sarah's heart was pounding as she hesitated, wondering what was going on. "What's happening, John? Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice quivering. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I had no choice," John said with a hint of regret in his voice. He pulled the trigger, and Sarah felt a sharp pain in her chest. She fell to the ground, gasping for breath, and her vision began to fade. But then, something unexpected happened. A burst of energy surged through her body, and Sarah felt a new strength she had never known before. She stood up, feeling revitalized and more alive than ever. John's eyes widened in shock as he tried to shoot her again, but Sarah was too quick. She disarmed him with a swift move and held him at gunpoint. "Why did you shoot me, John?" she demanded, feeling a sense of betrayal. John hesitated, his eyes darting around the room. "It was a setup, Sarah. They threatened my family. They said they'd kill them if I didn't get rid of you." Sarah's heart sank as she realized that her own partner had betrayed her. "Who's behind this, John?" she asked, her gun still trained on him. "It's the police department," John said, his voice heavy with guilt. Sarah's blood boiled as she processed what he had just said. The police department, the very institution she had sworn to uphold, was corrupt. She felt a sense of outrage and betrayal. As she made her way out of the apartment, Sarah knew that she had to bring down the corrupt officials who had orchestrated the attack on Lady Catherine and had threatened her own life. She was determined to get justice, no matter what it took.